Welcome to this episode of the Greater Phoenix Chambers podcast, Let's Talk Business Phoenix, with your host, me, Todd Sanders, President and CEO of the Greater Phoenix Chamber. In each episode, we're going to tackle important issues and subjects affecting businesses, our community, and the state today. Through relevant, timely topics, this podcast serves as the business community's voice with a mission of championing business growth, identifying problems that restrict economic development, and convening community leaders to move Phoenix forward. Welcome to the podcast, and we are welcome to have Erin, who is the Public and Social Impact Leader for Slalom Consulting here in Arizona. That's her day job. We also has a second job, and that is as our chair this year. So welcome. We're happy to have you.
Thank you. I'm super excited. I mean, big shoes to fill. I listened to Mayor Kate Gallego. You had VP Public Affairs superstar Mike Huckins here, and you had Athena Ward. Molly was amazing. So
we've had and Michael Crow too. He's coming up soon, so that'll be out soon. Very exciting. So you're in good company. Big shoes to fill. Super excited. Super grateful. And I did hear this is the #1 chamber podcast. It really is. So we don't like to talk about that, but it really is.
Yeah. Yes. Awesome.
Well, thanks for being here. Let's start. I'd love for people to really know a little bit more about your background, and then maybe a fact about you that people may not see on your bio.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I born and raised up in Washington, Seattle, went to UW. So shout out to all the Huskies down here.
There's quite a lot, aren't there?
There are. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. We're actually convening and going to games together, which is great. Moved down here about 13 years ago without friends, family, or a job. My husband has some family here, but didn't know much about Arizona, except I was ready to trade in my ski goggles for sunglasses. So made a big change, which is crazy when you're late 20s and you leave a place with a really big ecosystem, working for a consulting firm, doing a lot of work with Microsoft. I felt really plugged in up in Seattle. So coming down here and not knowing anybody was a big change, an exciting one. And turns out we fell in love with Arizona and we haven't looked back, and suddenly it's been 13 years. So flash forward, we opened Slalom Consulting here about 9 years ago. And we're a little bit unique in the fact that we get to do the big strategic consulting, but have a local model. So we don't ship people on and off airplanes all the time. And then I get to be really involved with the chamber, which is my super, super passion. It's been over a decade now, which seems crazy.
We don't like to let people go once they're in the orbit, and we're thrilled. I want you to talk about something on your bio, but it's curious that you talked about coming here, because what I hear a lot is that this is a great place to be new. So the kind of what I hear is like, nobody's saying, where'd you go to school? Who's your family? People are if you want to get involved, that seems to be enough.
Yes.
Is that what you experienced?
Eventually, yes. I would say when I came here, I was super open and I tried a lot of different events. There was a lot of women's networking events, but I felt like I was going to places where people were like shoving business cards kind of in front of me to sell me something. And it wasn't quite what I was looking for. So when I came to Valley Young Professionals group, I was so excited. I think once you find like-minded people, no one asked me where I was working. No one asked me where I was from. They asked me, what are you passionate about? And I'm like, these are my people. We were committed to Arizona and to making a difference here. So I found my group, and that was 10 years ago. And it's funny because you think back the people I met at that first interaction, Will, Matt Clyde, whose office we're in right now.
Clyde. Yes, thank you, Matt.
Ross and Laura, we had barbecues together. We had babies together. We didn't have babies together. We had babies at the same time. Yeah. So hopefully my husband will hear that. But anyways, we've been friends, and it's been fun to watch them grow in their careers and their families and their ecosystem. And
well, it's good to have that perspective. And we're going to talk a little bit more about VYP. Yeah. So something about you that we might not see on the slalom bio.
Well, I think people know that we're pretty big travelers.
Yes.
But I don't think I've shared all my stories about traveling. We have a lot. But I think one that's fun that I've actually never told before is we were starting a backpacking trip, and we need to get to Mexico cheaply to start. That was our first entry point as we were getting down to Argentina. And we couldn't get a flight, so we jumped on a cruise ship last minute, so it was super cheap. And then we jumped off the ship before it turned around, which I guess was really weird. They'd never seen that before.
Probably not.
But a really cheap way to do it if you're looking for a quick, easy trip to Mexico. But we didn't have a place to stay. So there was an opening in the fence outside the tourist area. we went through. We didn't cut it open. It was actually a gap in the fence. And we hitched a ride and found a remote beach and set up a tent. Didn't have anybody there. And it was a pretty cool experience until nightfall came. And then we heard voices. And we're in our tent. We have no cell phone. And we hear people approaching. And we're like, oh, there was a Jeep that dropped us off. So someone knows we're here. Anyways, we get out of our tent. We meet these people. They take us to dinner. And they have no electricity. We make this amazing seafood by candlelight. And it was probably one of the best meals of my life, let alone the most amazing people.
Yeah.
They didn't have much, but they wanted to, share it with us and get to know us. So love to meet new people. A little scary in the beginning, but
the power of travel though, right?
Power of travel. And that there's goodness out there and that people want to connect. So.
Well, and also for those of you watching, Erin has a phenomenal story about Greece in a car and a VIN number. When you see her out and about, ask her that story. It's awesome. So you're the chair this year.
Yes.
Leadership is I think for our organization, it's what makes us run.
Right.
Leadership is so important. So, why is it important, in your mind, leadership either as an organization or individually? Why does it matter? Or does it?
It does. It matters because it impacts the culture. And I truly believe that people don't leave companies. People leave leaders, right? You set the tone for the company. You set the values, the mission. And without those things, I don't think companies can exist, right? And if you bring in the wrong leader that doesn't have values aligned, doesn't create the culture that people want to be around and work for, there's all sorts of things that can happen, right? So I think leadership begins with the right people saying the right things and embracing and appreciating their employees. It's the employees that are doing so much hard work day in and day out that don't always get recognized. So I think the right leadership recognizes employees, but also knows their employees and knows how to motivate them, right? What makes them tick and how to keep organizations going in a way that people are excited to go to work every day. That has to come from leadership.
And what about outside the C-suite? The rest of these folks, is there a leadership role for them?
Absolutely. I think everybody can and should be a leader in their companies, right?
And it matters within a company. Or I guess if you come outside of the corporate world or business world, I think there's certainly there seems to be a real need for leadership these days.
I understand. My son is in first grade and we talk about leadership on the playground.
Yeah. It's
and
true, though.
Leadership in the classroom and the importance of it. And with leadership comes great responsibility too. So anyways, I probably don't use the right words for my first grader, but yes, I believe in the power of leadership and creating the right tone and culture for.
Well, and setting that as something that we all should be striving for too.
Absolutely.
And starting in first grade is a good idea, right? Because we all have a responsibility.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned Valley Young Professionals, which for me at the Chamber, this has been one of the things I'm probably most proud of. The way that the program has really grown and evolved, and I think a big part of that is the people who are in that group. Talk to us a little bit about what is VYP, what are they all about, and why is it important?
Yes. Well, I fell in love with the group, like I mentioned, 10-ish years ago when I first was coming down looking for my people. But their mission, right, is to bring like-minded people together to really make Arizona the most amazing place possible. Like, how do we attract and retain talent here? How do we bring businesses here? And how do we promote the people that are in companies that are here, right? So what I love about the VYP group is that they're collected and they're taking the organization out so that, they do tours. We got to do behind the scenes waste management, like the 16th hole we got to go see. We got to tour Ping for an example. We got to go to Luke Air Force Base. We got to get behind the scenes and get to know Arizona, right? Because you're more passionate about it the more you get to know. And the people are all doing incredible things, right? These aren't just young people. They're executives in their companies. They just happen to be a different age, right? I think it's 25 to 40. And I think it's the commitment to what they're trying to achieve to Arizona that makes them so incredible. And I see the board today. I don't think I could be on the board. They're incredible. It's amazing. Yeah. And I love what they're doing. I love their passion. I love seeing them. I ran into Eric at dinner last night. I love seeing the people come from the Valley Young Professional Board up into, the big board, if you will, that we say, with new ideas and things that are working well and things they're doing and their perspectives as a young professional versus some of the things we're doing today.
Well, they add so much. I know we decided a few years ago that the leadership of VYP should also have a representation on the board, and I think some organizations they're there, but they don't have a vote, or they're just going to be there to listen. And we decided no. Why wouldn't we give them a voice? And I think that turned out to be a really good idea.
It was a huge idea. And did you, at our events, they're the ones sitting up front. They're the ones sometimes more vocal than some people that have been there for 5 or 6 years. And I love that. I love that we encourage every voice to be heard, and they're up front ready to speak, which is incredible.
It is. I didn't expect that, but it was absolutely the best case scenario that we would have that kind of interaction. And the nice thing is, what they bring to the table matters, and it has driven some of the direction, some of the policy that we now have adopted.
Absolutely.
So when you think about, though, chambers, we have a reputation for sort of, not our chamber, of course, chambers for being sort of staid and sort of not really where young professionals tend to be. How does this work? How does this young professionals organization work within the chamber? I mean, it doesn't seem like that's sort of part of the narrative. There are other places.
There are other places, but if you look around, because I won't call out the organizations I went to, but there's so many different organizations that work in silos, right? I think what's amazing about VYP is you're not siloed. You're not focused on lawyers or technology or healthcare, but you're bringing the best minds from every one of those industries together to really think holistically about how to make Arizona great. And I think if, some people have those groups where they can go deep in the industry, and there's a time and a place for that. But I think people like the valuing professionals like the breadth and expertise, and they want to know what's going on in other industries, because that helps create the best member experience, right? You don't want one size fits all.
Absolutely. Well, so I think if we go back in time, obviously you were one of the first chairs as we sort of relaunched that organization. And I think what's interesting is what happened since then, right? It has evolved into something that is a growing concern within the chamber. And I've had chamber leaders around the country, because the dirty little secret is most chamber leaders don't know how to manage it, and it turns out the secret sauce is you just need the right players in the room, and they're going to help be the success. But so now that group now is much different from when you found it.
Yes, but I would say in addition to the secret sauce you mentioned, your team, Todd, they are the ones behind the scenes making it happen, right?
Thank you. They're amazing.
They are. And we can say, hey, we have an idea. We want to go tour X, Y, and Z. Does anyone have a contact there? And they're like, oh, yeah, of course. The Suns, the Diamondbacks, the Coyotes, everyone in Arizona is a member of the chamber. So they make it happen. And they bring a cool factor, right? Yeah. So we can bump up ideas, but your chamber and your team have the relationships to make it all happen.
Well, they're certainly passionate about the young professionals. And I'm glad to hear that. Thank you.
Yes. And I think I forgot the question you actually asked me when I was making my point. But if there was, I was supposed to, what was it?
Well, I think kind of where are they today? I mean, it seems like they've really grown from when sort of that inception, when you sort of kicked it off as chair at that time.
Yeah, absolutely. We had, it started as maybe 10 of us.
Yeah. And
now, and we were honestly the first year we were trying to get applicants to be on the board. And we had people come and apply to the board, and we're like, what was your favorite event? And like, I've never been to an event. I'm like, all right, you can't be on a board if you don't know what we're about.
You've never done anything, right?
Yeah. And I go, why are you passionate about this? And it's great that they're passionate about our mission and vision. But I'm like, go to 5 events, give your feedback. And then, we want a voice on the board. So I would say it's grown. Now we have applicants, hundreds of applicants to be on this incredible organization. They have a reputation, right? I mean, they're making impacts. They're doing the most amazing, they're working on initiatives, on propositions, but also behind the scenes charity. There was how many? 80 people that were doing, they're working on the sewing for the,
correct.
Yes, for that. They were making the cancer care patients. I know we had at least 10 people go, and they said that they left that experience just fulfilled emotionally, and it made such a huge impact.
Right.
And then we got to support one of our members who won, I think it was an Athena Award too. So it's a full circle experience.
It's a nice way to do that. And I think I also like the mentoring that's done too between the VYP board and the regular board.
Yes. And I will say, as somebody who's been on both sides of that, it's an incredible experience.
Well, I want to stick to the idea of leadership. And so you then came on to the chamber board.
Yes.
And obviously, I think what makes you somewhat unique is you have a really deep amount of experience in the chamber. I mean, you've done it sort of almost done it all, right? You joined the board,
Yep.
and then this year we asked you to consider being the chair, and you said yes. That's a big time commitment. You do have a day job, as we talked about. You have a family. What went into that decision? I'm sure that you didn't take that lightly. I know you had to think about it.
I did, and I first of all was honored that you even thought of me, and I was super excited. I was humbled. I thought about it for a while, and I thought, when things make me uncomfortable, I have to say yes. There's an element of, this is an opportunity that you can't turn down, that excites you. And I've been told when I leave chamber meetings, I am just pumped, right? Like, what is happening in those meetings that get you so pumped? I'm like, it's the people, it's what we're doing, it's the mission. And I think back to when I first went from the Valuing Professionals meetings, where they were less formal. We knew each other, we had barbecues together, like I mentioned. And then I walked into my first ever big board meeting, and it was so formal. And I saw people that I'd only heard of. I'd seen them on the news. They were the executives of the most impactful organizations in Arizona, highly intimidating. Yet I was super grateful to be at the table with them. And I struggled to find my voice a little bit in those first couple meetings. And I'll never forget, actually, I did find my voice. I have this motto where, if I'm in a room, I have to make an impact. And it doesn't mean talk to talk.
Right.
But it means don't take up space, right? Like, figure
Don't
out
just
your
be
voice.
sitting in a chair.
Yes, yeah. So one of my first meetings, I finally raised my hand. And the chairman at the time said, that is a great question. Thank you for asking. I have no idea what the question was. I have no idea what the topic was. This was 6 years ago. But I was so grateful for how they made me feel. Yeah. And so one of the big things with coming to this board is I want everyone to have a voice. And it's not just the board members. It's all 2,400 members, right? That's our job, is to make sure we're representing them, not only at the Capitol, but across the board in these decisions.
Well, I think you made that really clear your first meeting. That was one of the big things you talked about, and that we're all here to contribute. And that might be to raise your hand in a meeting, but that also might be somewhere else,
right? Or
that might be interacting with us outside of a board meeting.
Yeah, I come from, and I attribute my company, we're a culture of feedback, right? And not everyone's willing to give it in real time. And I'm also somebody that likes to think about things, as you know, before I probably overanalyze before I just talk. So I want to be a forum where everyone has my cell phone. I'll go to coffee with anybody, but give us feedback, because if this isn't your best chamber year, if you're not getting what you want as a member of the board, as a member, what's going to keep you here, right? And if we don't get that feedback, how do we change?
Now you know why I asked her to be the chair. Well, I think it's made a difference, and I think this has been a significant year.
Huge.
Right away, we had the gubernatorial candidates in, we had the AG candidates in, and I think that was incredibly impactful. I think they need to hear from the business community, but it was a good opportunity for our board members as well.
And also, to your point, it showed their investment in our community by hearing from us. And I think I've never had the opportunity to be face to face with all four of the candidates the month before they're getting elected. And so, and it was pretty telling. I loved my only chance to ask about zombie apocalypse questions.
Correct.
How they answer that. And what we tried to do, and what I think you did a great job of, and the whole team did, is let's make these people human. They are humans, right? And let's give them a voice to the business. Let's invite them to hear what's important to us as business leaders and what we need out of them to make Arizona amazing.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's a mistake to just assume. And if you're not engaging in a conversation, then you can really difficult to complain about that.
Absolutely.
When they have no idea what your needs are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It was a really cool experience. And I love the fact that I think Mike had him all on the cell phone and she said, hey, you want to pop by?
It was good.
Different meetings. It was fantastic. Yeah.
Well, so thinking about that, and we're in election season, what are some of the big issues you think we're facing as a state and a nation today? And what are some of the things you think we need to be thinking about?
Yeah, I think top of everyone's mind is water. Yeah. We're in a desert. Border, immigration, women's healthcare is at the top of all of these. And there's been a lot of conversations leading into elections, right? And I think coming together after the elections, we're how many hours past election, we still don't know who the winners are, right?
Correct.
We as an organization, and I think you do a fantastic job of this, is politics aside, we need to come together and solve these issues. I think a great example actually was just last week. We had a roundtable, right? It was on immigration.
Correct.
And I have to say, in my 10 or 12 years here, it was one of the most impactful conversations. And the reason, we had people local to Arizona.
Yep.
You had people fly in. You had people that wanted to close the border. You had people that wanted to open the border.
Right.
You had a 6th generation farmer there that couldn't afford to pay the wages because they didn't have workers. You had somebody who crossed, I think, illegally at age 6 with their family.
Correct. A dreamer.
Yep. We had somebody who was getting shot at in their company but managed to come over legally. And it would have been so easy for that room to point fingers and bring politics into it. And it was a controlled discussion where the message was, first of all, this is a human issue, right?
Correct.
And this is a complex issue. And if we don't come together to solve it, it's not going to happen. And I took out of that so much. It was, an hour and a half out of our days, but it wasn't just a conversation. It was the first step in solving this problem that is so important. And that's just one example in 1 week. You do these things every single week, week in and week out.
You bring up a good point. It's really hard to solve complex issues like
Yes.
immigration on sound bites or tweets.
Right.
There's a lot more to that. And that kind of leads me to my next question. I mean, there's so much division out there right now in society, and it's disconcerting, I think, for a lot of us. What role does leadership, what role does the business community play in kind of changing that course?
That's a tough one. I think, one, we have to lead by example.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have to not point fingers. I think we need to not focus on the past. I think that's happening too much. I think we need to focus on the future. I think we need to be open to all ideas, all voices, all walks of life need to be at the table. And as leaders, we need to make sure we're not just hearing the people that are loudest, right? What are the people in the back of the room? What are the people who couldn't even show up today? I want to hear from them too. And that's what I think we need to do as leaders, is ensure, and then once everyone's heard, come together and solve it together by hearing all the different options, right?
So you feel like business has a voice in that?
They have to. If they don't, they need to step up and make sure their voice is heard. And that's going to be on the business leaders as well as political leaders to hear them out, right?
Absolutely. As a leader, people like to look for inspiration and direction. Now, what's the biggest piece of advice you'd give to somebody right now, sort of who are kind of growing into their career?
I would say, I think I mentioned earlier, but do things that make you uncomfortable. Just say yes. I remember the first time the chamber asked me to moderate with Secretary of State. Mm-hmm. I was so nervous. I was out of my comfort zone. I'm like, can I even spell her name right? How do I introduce her? So I would say yes to that. And to this day, it was so fun. So fun.
You don't regret it.
Don't regret it. And then that led to, you start saying yes, and then more people start asking, right? And then you start leading other panels, open to other discussions. And I got to be on the Athena Awards panel. One of the first times, I honestly didn't even know a lot about the program. I knew it was an impactful, amazing program. But to be a judge, it's an all-day event, but it's honestly something I look forward to every single year because you get to hear the stories.
And they're amazing.
They're amazing.
I did not want to be because I couldn't pick.
No, I leave there thinking, I am not doing enough. But I'm so grateful these people are in Arizona and they're so inspiring. So say yes, I think is number one. 2 is get a mentor. Yeah. And get a mentee. It's equally rewarding both ways, and come to it with a learning mindset, because I think that's the way to do it. And I usually go in 3. So I'm thinking of a third one as I'm thinking about what makes people tick. But I would say be kind. Yeah.
I have to say I agree with that. It seems to be missing.
Yeah.
And I think sort of kindness is overlooked and underrated.
I agree.
So, one thing that always astounds me about you is you're doing so much. You obviously have, like we mentioned, your job. You have this role. You seem to always meeting with somebody. You have family. Let's talk about work-life balance. Is that a thing, or is that something that's just talked about? Are you able to do that?
I'm getting better at it. If you asked me this question 2 years ago, it would have been a wildly different answer. But I am getting better at setting boundaries. I only do boundaries. Yes, family time. We have dinner together most nights of the week. I have a family, which is so important to me. I typically only do one event after hours a week. I typically don't leave my house anymore before 8. I used to always take conference calls at 7, and I'm like, it was so chaotic. I'm making lunches, making breakfast, on a call, and my family's not getting the best, Erin. Whoever I'm talking to is not getting the best of me. And so I just blocked my calendar. Unless it's important, they know how to get a hold of me. But that's family time, right? That's some of the best conversations with my 3 and 6-year-old are at the breakfast nook as we're making breakfast and lunches together and rushing out the door to school. So I've embraced that. You can either have a chaotic day or you can find joy in it. And I'm like, this is my joy time, 7 to 8. And that's really transformed how I set my mornings. But I would say the benefit too is sometimes and often my work, my chamber life, and my family life all intersect. My husband works with me. So we're at the same company. We've both been there almost 9 years, which is great in so many ways. So that collides. The work that I do in public and social impact, I launched that public and social impact based on the work that I was doing with the chamber and the synergies and the gaps, right? So I think in an ideal world, there's definitely cohesion. I also set it out, and I'm getting better at setting boundaries, and family time is family time without cell phone. And events are great events, but I'm still home when I want to be home.
Well, I think I haven't heard someone say sort of this intentional idea of setting boundaries. And I think that makes it real. Instead of like, well, I manage it. Well, that's hard to do unless you really think about how you set those boundaries in those times. Yeah. So thank you.
Yes.
No. Well, thanks for spending so much time with us. We are going to have a quick lightning round, short lightning round. So obviously we all love going to the Diamondbacks games, and everyone has their walk-up music. So I'm going to ask you. You're walking up, Derek Hall brings you on the team. Ooh. You're going up to the plate. What's your walk-up music?
I think it's going to have to be Go Big or Go Home.
Well,
that's my theme. Although not about the part where they're in the bar not wanting to go home to their families, but life is short. Go big or go home. That's my motto.
Well, I'm glad I know that song, because the rule is if I don't know the song, you have to sing it. So
you're really lucky. Actually, the listeners are really lucky.
Okay. First job.
So I was a berry picker in the fields. I picked strawberries.
Nice.
I did that in the summer until I got I showed my horse at the fair, and I worked all summer for that fair paycheck that came. It was probably $60 to $80. But yeah, I think my first corporate job, and this is no one-word answer, but I ran a gym, 24-hour fitness, and I got the free membership while I was in college. And then when I graduated, they gave me my own club to run as an operations manager.
So looking at the berry picking job, what did you learn from that?
I learned how to catch a bus on time, because if there's no way to walk out in the fields if you miss your bus. I learned if you don't pack your lunch, strawberries are not a good lunch after day 3. So I always pack a lunch. And that, there's really great people out there that I would not have probably met in any other way. We didn't go to school together. I didn't necessarily have them in my ecosystem. And they're amazing. And there was 4-year-olds picking berries next to me that were faster than me. So age doesn't apply in berry picking.
And really no unimportant jobs, right? It's very true. I think we've learned that. Okay, you can't say your current job. What dream job?
Oh, is there one for quality control of massages where I was forced to get massages? No, all jokes aside, I do love a good massage. I think I can do more around social impact. And I have a soft spot for kids. Yeah. And I don't know if I call it dream job or next phase or something, but I want to do more and give back and take care of kids in a way that I'm not doing today.
Not a hypothetical, so more to come.
Yeah.
And then finally, since we do know you're a world traveler.
Yeah.
What's your number now? What are we up to? How many countries?
So I was counting. I was over 45. And my last words from my grandma as she was passing, because she was a world traveler, she said, "Don't count, just go."
Okay.
And those were literally her last words to me. So I'm trying not to count anymore. And it was COVID, so I don't think I'm much past 45 anyways.
There you go. Something like that. Okay, so dream trip then. What would be the dream trip? Cost, no option. No, that's not a problem.
Probably Antarctica and go see penguins. And we tried to get out there, and the flight conditions weren't good when we were down at the Falkland Islands. And so I would love to go back, but I feel like I was so close and didn't go. I think I would say penguins.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I mean, the Mexico one, you can't recreate it. So I think that sounds like a really good option.
What is yours? I don't think I've ever heard yours.
That would be a good one. I have now. See, I can't do this backwards. I'll have to think about that. But that sounds really good. I know we've talked about doing that trip too.
Yeah.
So, thank you for spending so much time with us.
Thank you for having me.
This has been so much fun. And of course, thank you for the leadership this year. It has been, it's been an interesting year. And I think it's a high impact year.
And I'm so excited for the rest of the year, because big things are coming that we haven't even announced yet. But I'm really excited. So thank you for having me.
You bet. More to come.
More to come.
Thank you.